She demanded combat, but my tattoo made her freeze. The galactic station nexus buzzed with activity as species from across the known universe conducted their daily business. Marcus Chen adjusted his collar, making sure the sleeves of his diplomatic uniform covered the intricate tattoos that wound around both his arms. As Earth's newest cultural attaché, he had been warned about keeping certain aspects of human heritage hidden during initial contact protocols. The Zephyrian delegation had arrived 3 hours ago, their towering blue forms causing quite a stir among the other species. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with crystalline skin that reflected light in mesmerizing patterns, they were considered one of the most formidable warrior races in the galaxy. Their leader, Commander Vaex Thera, had specifically requested a meeting with a human representative to discuss potential military alliances. Marcus made his way through the crowded promenade toward Conference Room 7, where the meeting was scheduled to take place. Other species gave the Zephyrians a wide berth, their reputation for challenging anyone they deemed worthy of combat preceding them. The Zephyrians believed that only through physical contest could true respect and understanding be achieved between different peoples. As Marcus entered the conference room, Commander Vaex Thara turned to face him. Her 6 eyes, arranged in 2 rows across her elongated skull, fixed upon him with predatory intensity. Her subordinates, 3 equally imposing warriors, flanked her on either side. The air in the room seemed to thicken with tension as she studied the human before her. "So this is what humanity sends to represent their species," Vaex Thera's voice resonated with harmonic undertones that made the translator struggle to convey her meaning. "A small, soft creature with no visible weapons or armor. How disappointing." Marcus maintained his diplomatic composure, offering a formal bow as protocol dictated. "Commander Vaex Thera, I am Marcus Chen, representing Earth in these preliminary discussions. We are honored by your presence and look forward to productive negotiations." The commander's crystalline skin shifted color, displaying patterns that Marcus recognized as amusement mixed with disdain. Negotiations. Human. My people do not negotiate with those who have not proven their worth in combat. If your species wishes to be considered as potential allies, you must first demonstrate that you are not cowards hiding behind words and technology. Marcus had been briefed about this possibility. The Zephyrian culture was built around the concept of martial prowess, and they viewed diplomacy without physical demonstration as weakness. However, Earth's leadership had been clear. No violence was to be initiated under any circumstances. The political ramifications of a diplomatic incident could set back human expansion into this sector by decades. "Commander, while we respect your traditions, surely there are other ways to demonstrate worth beyond physical combat. Perhaps we could share cultural exchanges, technological innovations, or historical accounts of human achievements," Marcus suggested, hoping to find middle ground. Vaex Thara's 4 arms crossed over her chest in a gesture that clearly conveyed disgust. "Achievements told through words are meaningless. Any species can fabricate tales of glory. True strength is proven through action, through the willingness to face an opponent with courage and skill. If you refuse to fight, then humanity marks itself as a race of cowards, unworthy of our respect or alliance." The other Zephyrians behind their commander began to make low, rumbling sounds that Marcus realized was their equivalent of derisive laughter. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, and Marcus felt the weight of representing his entire species in this moment. Back on Earth, billions of people were counting on these negotiations to succeed. The Zephyrians controlled 3 key shipping lanes that would cut human trade routes by months, potentially saving countless lives on remote colonies that depended on regular supply runs. "Commander, I understand your perspective, but I am a diplomat. not a warrior. I am not equipped for combat, nor is it my role to engage in violence, Marcus explained, trying to maintain professionalism despite the growing hostility in the room. Then you are useless, Vyexthara declared, rising to her full imposing height. A species that sends diplomats who cannot fight is a species that does not deserve to exist among the stars. Perhaps we should report to the Galactic Council that humans are nothing more than elaborate prey animals, fit only for observation in protective reserves. The insult stung, not just personally, but for what it represented. Marcus knew that if the Zephyrians spread word that humans were cowards, it would impact every future first contact scenario. Other species would view humanity as weak, potentially leading to exploitation or worse. The stakes were higher than just one trade agreement. Very well, Marcus said quietly, surprising everyone in the room, including himself. If combat is the only language your people understand, then I accept your challenge. However, I have one condition. Vyexthara's skin patterns shifted to what Marcus interpreted as surprise mixed with interest. A human wishes to fight? This is unexpected. What is your condition, soft one? Marcus began rolling up his sleeves, revealing the intricate tattoos that covered his forearms. The Zephyrians' attention was immediately drawn to the detailed artwork, but they had no context for understanding what they were seeing. The condition is that you listen to the story behind these markings. In human culture, we carry our history on our skin. If I am to face you in combat, you should know what you are truly fighting. The commander's 6 eyes studied the tattoos with newfound curiosity. The artwork was extraordinary, even by galactic standards. Detailed scenes seemed to flow from one into another, depicting what appeared to be battles, landscapes, and symbols that held deep meaning. These are impressive. Your artisans are skilled. But what do they represent? They represent the history of my family line, Commander. Every image tells a story of the warriors who came before me. This dragon wrapped around my right arm represents my great-grandfather, who fought in the Pacific Theater during what we call the Second World War. This eagle soaring over mountains represents my grandfather, who served in Vietnam. These crossed rifles represent my father, who served as a Marine in Afghanistan. As Marcus spoke, he continued revealing more of the tattoos, each one more intricate than the last. The Zephyrians watched in fascination as the human before them transformed from a simple diplomat into something far more complex. And this? Vyexthara asked, pointing to a particularly elaborate design that seemed to incorporate elements from all the others. This represents my own service, Marcus said simply. Before I became a diplomat, I was a soldier, special forces specifically. I served 3 tours in the outer colonies, protecting human settlements from raiders and hostile wildlife. Every human in the diplomatic corps is required to have military experience. We learned long ago that those who wish for peace must be prepared for war. The room fell silent as the implications of Marcus's words sank in. The Zephyrians exchanged glances, their skin patterns shifting to colors that Marcus didn't recognize. The dynamic in the room had changed completely. What had seemed like a weak diplomat was now revealed to be something far more dangerous. "You are a warrior," Vyexthara stated, though it sounded more like a question. "But you speak of peace and negotiation. How do you reconcile these opposing natures?" Marcus finished rolling up his sleeves, the full extent of his tattoos now visible. "Because true warriors understand that the greatest victory is the one that prevents unnecessary bloodshed. Every battle I fought, every life I took or saved, taught me that violence should be the last resort, not the first. When I speak of peace, I do so not from weakness, but from the knowledge of what war truly costs." The Zephyrian commander stepped closer, studying Marcus with new eyes. Her skin patterns had shifted to something that almost resembled respect. "Show me," she commanded. "Show me more of these warrior markings." Marcus hesitated for a moment, then began unbuttoning his diplomatic jacket. Underneath, his dress shirt revealed even more elaborate tattoos that extended across his chest and shoulders. Each design was a masterpiece of artistic expression combined with deep personal meaning. The Zephyrians watched in growing amazement as more of the human's history was revealed through his skin art. "This phoenix rising from flames represents my unit's survival during the siege of Kepler Station. We held off a force 10 times our size for 6 days until reinforcements arrived. This wolf pack represents the brothers I lost during that battle, and this lone wolf represents my survival. In human culture, we believe that carrying these images keeps the memory of the fallen alive within us." Vaxthara's skin had now shifted to patterns that Marcus didn't recognize, but her body language suggested something between awe and confusion. "You carry your entire war history upon your body? This is unprecedented among the species we have encountered. Every human soldier has the right to mark their skin with their service, their losses, their victories, and their brothers," Marcus explained. "But these particular tattoos represent more than just personal history. They represent the martial heritage of humanity itself." As Marcus continued to reveal more of his tattoos, the Zephyrian, She Demanded Combat, Story, Part 2. Commander Vaxthara circled Marcus slowly, her 6 eyes studying every visible tattoo with the intensity of a scholar examining an ancient text. The other Zephyrians maintained their positions, but their hostile postures had softened into something resembling curiosity. The crystalline patterns on their skin shifted constantly, indicating deep thought and confusion. "This marking here," she pointed to an elaborate design on Marcus's left shoulder that depicted a shield with crossed swords behind it. "What does this represent?" Marcus glanced down at the tattoo, his expression growing more serious. "That represents my unit designation, the 42nd Special Operations Group, known as the Last Stand Battalion. We specialized in situations where retreat was not an option and reinforcements would not arrive in time." The commander's skin patterns shifted to deep blue, which Marcus had learned indicated respect among her people. "You speak of last stands as if they were routine. How many times did your unit face such circumstances?" 17 major engagements over my 8-year service period," Marcus replied matter-of-factly. "Each time, we were outnumbered by significant margins. Each time, we had civilians or strategic assets to protect. Each time, we found a way to survive and complete our mission." One of the other Zephyrians, a subordinate commander whose skin bore scars from obvious combat, stepped forward. 17 last stands. That is impossible. No warrior survives 17 hopeless battles." Marcus turned to face the challenger, his diplomatic mask slipping slightly to reveal the hardened soldier beneath. "Tell that to the 847 civilians we evacuated from Proxima Mining Station while holding off 3 full raider battalions with a force of 30 soldiers. Tell that to the diplomatic mission we protected on Rigel 7 when local insurgents attempted a coup with overwhelming numbers. Tell that to the children we saved on New Geneva when their orbital defense grid failed and hostile forces made planetfall." As Marcus spoke, his voice took on a different quality. The polite, diplomatic tone was replaced by something harder, more authoritative. The Zephyrians found themselves listening not to a negotiator, but to a battlefield commander recounting tactical victories against impossible odds. "Each of these tattoos," Marcus continued, gesturing to a complex spiral pattern that wound around his right bicep, "represents a different engagement where my unit was expected to die, but chose to live instead. We didn't survive through superior numbers or better technology. We survived through adaptability, creativity, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat as an option." Commander Vayexthara's 6 eyes widened as she began to understand the implications of what she was hearing. You are saying that humans routinely accept missions that other species would consider suicide runs? I'm saying that humans have a different relationship with impossible odds than most species seem to, Marcus corrected. We have a saying, when the situation is hopeless, that's when humans get creative. Our history is full of examples where small groups of humans accomplished things that should have been impossible. Marcus began rolling up his remaining sleeve, revealing even more intricate artwork. This tattoo depicted a detailed scene of soldiers standing back-to-back in a circle, surrounded by overwhelming enemy forces, yet their faces showed determination rather than fear. This commemorates the Battle of Firebase Echo, where 12 human soldiers held off over 200 attackers for 14 hours until orbital support could arrive. The Zephyrian subordinate who had questioned Marcus earlier stepped even closer, his skin patterns now showing deep fascination rather than skepticism. 12 against 200? What weapons did you possess that could create such an advantage? Marcus smiled grimly. Standard infantry equipment. Assault rifles, grenades, basic armor. Nothing that would be considered exceptional by galactic standards. What we had was something that can't be manufactured or purchased. Which was? Commander Vayexthara asked, her voice barely concealing her growing interest. The absolute certainty that we would rather die than let those colonists be slaughtered. You see, Commander, the raiders weren't just planning to take resources or territory. Intelligence reports indicated they intended to kill every civilian in the settlement, including children. For humans, that makes the choice very simple. The room fell silent as the Zephyrians processed this information. Their own warrior culture prized individual combat prowess and personal honor, but what Marcus was describing went beyond personal glory. He was talking about a species that fought hardest when they were protecting others, especially those who couldn't protect themselves. Your species fights harder when the odds are worse? Another Zephyrian asked, confusion evident in his tone. Not exactly, Marcus replied, considering how to explain the concept. We fight smarter when the situation demands it. When everything is on the line and conventional tactics won't work, humans tend to find unconventional solutions. Sometimes that means fighting harder. Sometimes it means fighting differently. And sometimes it means finding ways to avoid fighting at all while still achieving the objective. Commander Vayexthara gestured toward a particularly complex tattoo that covered most of Marcus's forearm. It depicted what appeared to be a massive explosion viewed from space, with small ships fleeing in all directions. What does this represent? Marcus's expression grew somber as he looked at the artwork. That represents the most difficult decision I ever had to make as a commanding officer. We were tasked with destroying an asteroid mining facility that had been taken over by hostile forces and converted into a weapons manufacturing plant. The problem was that they had taken civilian hostages and were using them as human shields. The Zephyrians leaned forward, their attention completely focused on Marcus's words. This was exactly the kind of warrior tale they respected, but something in the humans' tone suggested this story would not follow the patterns they expected. My orders were clear. Destroy the facility at all costs. The weapons being manufactured there would have been used against multiple human colonies, potentially killing millions. But executing those orders would have meant sacrificing nearly 1,000 innocent people who had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So you chose to disobey orders to save the civilians? Vayexthara asked, her skin patterns indicating approval for such an honorable choice. No, Marcus replied quietly. I chose to find a third option that my superiors hadn't considered. We infiltrated the facility over the course of 3 days, moving through maintenance shafts and service tunnels. We systematically eliminated the hostile forces while evacuating civilians to secure areas of the station. Then we planted charges in the weapons manufacturing sections only, destroying the military threat while preserving the civilian areas and mining operations. The Zephyrians exchanged glances, their skin patterns shifting rapidly as they communicated in their visual language. What Marcus was describing challenged their understanding of military decision-making. In their culture, a warrior faced with such a choice would either sacrifice themselves to save the civilians or follow orders regardless of civilian casualties. The idea of finding a completely different solution was foreign to them. This required exceptional tactical planning and execution, the scarred subordinate observed. How many soldiers were under your command for this operation? 7, Marcus answered simply. The silence that followed was profound. 8 humans had accomplished what should have required a full military assault, and they had done it while preserving civilian lives that their own command structure was willing to sacrifice. The complexity of the operation was staggering, but what impressed the Zephyrians most was the underlying philosophy it represented. Your species considers civilian lives worth the risk of military failure? Commander Vyexithara asked, trying to understand the human mindset. Our species considers civilian lives worth the risk of finding better solutions, Marcus corrected. Military failure wasn't an option because too much was at stake, but neither was unnecessary loss of innocent life, so we found a way to achieve both objectives, even though it was more difficult and more dangerous than following standard procedures. Marcus began buttoning his shirt back up, but paused when he noticed the Zephyrians watching his movements with obvious disappointment. They had been studying his tattoos like historical documents and clearly wanted to see more. There's something else you should understand about these markings. They don't just represent victories or battles. They represent choices. He pulled his shirt back open and pointed to a tattoo on his chest that depicted a figure kneeling beside a fallen enemy, offering water. This represents the moment during the Kepler Station siege when I chose to provide medical aid to wounded enemy combatants during a temporary ceasefire. They had been fighting to kill us for 4 days, but when they were wounded and helpless, they were just people in need of help. The Zephyrians stared at the image with expressions of complete bewilderment. In their culture, enemies remained enemies until one side was completely defeated. The concept of providing aid to those who had been trying to kill you was completely outside their experience. You helped those who had tried to kill you? Vyexithara asked, her voice filled with confusion. Because they were no longer a threat and were in need of medical attention, Marcus confirmed. Many of them survived because of that aid, and several later provided information that helped us negotiate a peaceful end to the conflict. Showing mercy when you have the power to show cruelty often produces better long-term results than pure aggression. The commander's skin patterns shifted through several different configurations as she processed this information. Everything she was learning about humans challenged her species' fundamental assumptions about warfare, strength, and honor. These creatures seemed to fight like warriors when necessary, but their warrior philosophy was unlike anything she had encountered. Your tattoos tell stories of impossible victories achieved through unconventional means, mercy shown to enemies, and protection of civilians prioritized over military objectives, she summarized slowly. What manner? She demanded combat. Story, Part 3. Commander Vyexithara stood motionless for several minutes, her skin cycling through color patterns that Marcus had never seen before. Her subordinates remained equally silent, apparently waiting for their leader to process the information they had all received. The tension in the room had transformed from hostility into something far more complex. Human Marcus, she finally spoke, her voice carrying a different tone than before. I came here to test your species through combat. I believed that only through physical contest could we determine if humans were worthy of respect and alliance. But what you have shown me suggests that such a test would be insufficient. Marcus tilted his head slightly, studying the commander's changed demeanor. In what way? Commander? Vyaxathera gestured toward where Marcus's tattoos lay hidden beneath his diplomatic attire. Your markings tell stories of warriors who won battles through means we had not considered. You speak of victory achieved through mercy, of strength demonstrated through protection of the weak, of tactical solutions that prioritized preserving life over achieving objectives through force. These concepts challenge our understanding of what it means to be a warrior. The scarred subordinate stepped forward, his own skin patterns showing deep curiosity. In our culture, strength is measured by one's ability to defeat opponents in single combat. Honor is earned through personal prowess in battle, but your story suggests that humans measure strength and honor differently. Marcus considered his response carefully. These were the crucial moments where cultural understanding could either bridge the gap between species or create even wider divisions. We measure strength by what someone can protect, not just what they can destroy. We measure honor by the choices made when no one is watching and no one would blame you for taking the easier path. Personal prowess is valuable, but we value collective achievement more highly. Collective achievement? Commander Vyaxathera asked, her 6 eyes focusing intently on Marcus. Explain this concept. Every human victory I described involved multiple people working together toward a common goal. The Battle of Firebase Echo wasn't won by one exceptional warrior, but by 12 ordinary soldiers who trusted each other completely and coordinated their efforts perfectly. The asteroid facility mission succeeded because 7 specialists each contributed their unique skills to a shared plan. Marcus paused, then continued with growing conviction. Humans learned long ago that individual strength has limits. But when individuals combine their strengths while covering each other's weaknesses, they can accomplish things that seem impossible. Our greatest victories come not from our strongest individuals, but from our ability to work together. The Zephyrians exchanged rapid visual communications, their skin patterns flickering in sequences too fast for Marcus to interpret. He could sense that he had introduced concepts that they found both fascinating and troubling. This presents a problem, Commander Vyaxathera announced after the silent consultation with her subordinates. Our traditional challenge of single combat cannot adequately test collective abilities. How does one evaluate the worth of an entire species based on one individual's performance? Marcus smiled, recognizing an opportunity to demonstrate rather than just explain. Perhaps the question isn't whether I can defeat you in single combat, but whether we can find a way to work together on a challenge that neither of our species could solve alone. The commander's skin patterns shifted to what Marcus was beginning to recognize as intrigued confusion. You propose cooperation instead of competition? How would this demonstrate worth? Because worth isn't just about strength, Commander. It's about resourcefulness, adaptability, and the ability to find solutions to problems that haven't been solved before. What if instead of fighting each other, we faced a challenge together? Your species' strengths combined with human ingenuity might accomplish something that would benefit both our peoples. Marcus gestured toward the large viewing window that dominated one wall of the conference room. Beyond the transparent aluminum, space traffic moved in carefully controlled patterns around the massive station. Station Nexus has been having problems with pirate raids along the shipping lanes that your people control. 3 convoys have been attacked in the past month, with significant losses of life and cargo. Vyaxathera's attention sharpened immediately. The pirate raids had been a growing concern, but Zephyrian patrol fleets had been unable to stop them despite their superior combat capabilities. The raiders used hit-and-run tactics that avoided direct confrontation, striking at civilian vessels and disappearing before military forces could respond. Our patrols have engaged these raiders multiple times, she said, frustration evident in her tone. They refuse to stand and fight. Instead, they attack soft targets and flee when challenged. It is a coward's way of warfare. It's also an effective way of warfare, Marcus observed, which suggests that stopping them will require something more than superior firepower. It will require understanding their tactics and developing counter-strategies that anticipate their behavior. The scarred subordinate leaned forward with interest. You believe humans could solve this problem where we have failed? I believe humans and Zephyrians working together could solve it, Marcus corrected. Your ships have the speed and firepower to destroy the raiders once they're located, but finding them requires different skills. Humans specialize in predictive analysis, pattern recognition, and tactical deception. We could help predict where they'll strike next and set traps they won't see coming. Commander Vaexathara considered this proposal with obvious interest. The pirate problem had been damaging her people's reputation as protectors of the shipping lanes. A successful solution would restore their honor while demonstrating the value of the alliance with humans that her superiors had sent her to evaluate. What would such cooperation require? She asked carefully. Marcus pulled out a small data pad and activated a holographic display showing the recent attack patterns. First, we'd need detailed information about each raid, exact locations, timing, cargo manifests, ship types, and any communication intercepts. Then we'd need real-time coordination between human analysts and Zephyrian patrol fleets. As Marcus spoke, he began highlighting specific data points on the hologram. Look at these attack patterns. They're not random. There's a logic to the timing and target selection that suggests someone with insider knowledge of shipping schedules and cargo values. This isn't just opportunistic piracy. It's organized crime with intelligence assets. The Zephyrians studied the holographic data with growing interest. Their military training allowed them to recognize tactical patterns, but Marcus was highlighting connections they hadn't noticed. You see structure where we saw chaos, Vaexathara observed. Because chaos is rarely random, Marcus replied. Humans learn to survive by recognizing patterns that others missed. In this case, the raiders are following a predictable logic, which means their next moves can be anticipated and countered. Marcus manipulated the hologram to show projected future attack vectors based on the established patterns. If these calculations are correct, they'll strike at one of 3 locations within the next 48 hours. A Zephyrian patrol fleet positioned at the correct coordinates could intercept them instead of responding to their attack. The scarred subordinate studied the projections with obvious excitement. This would allow us to engage them in direct combat instead of chasing after them. Finally, an honorable battle. More than that, Marcus added. If we capture some of their ships instead of destroying all of them, we could trace their support network and eliminate the entire organization. That would be a permanent solution instead of just a temporary victory. Commander Vaexathara's skin patterns had shifted to colors that Marcus interpreted as anticipation mixed with respect. You propose to solve our tactical problem while providing your people with an opportunity to demonstrate their analytical capabilities. This serves both our interests. That's the idea behind True Alliance, Marcus confirmed. Neither species trying to prove superiority over the other, but both working together to achieve goals that benefit everyone involved. The strength of the partnership comes from combining different capabilities, not from determining who has the stronger individuals. The room fell silent again as the Zephyrians processed this fundamental shift in their relationship with humans. What had begun as a test of worthiness through combat had evolved into a proposal for genuine cooperation based on complementary strengths. If we proceed with this joint operation, Vaexathara said slowly, and if it succeeds, what would this mean for the broader relationship between our species? Marcus smiled, recognizing that they had reached the true heart of the negotiations. It would mean that we've proven something more valuable than individual strength or courage. We've proven that our species can work together to solve problems that neither could handle alone. That's the foundation for a lasting alliance. The commander's 6 eyes studied Marcus with new understanding. "You never intended to fight me, did you? Even when you accepted my challenge, you were looking for a way to transform competition into cooperation." "I was prepared to fight if that was the only way to earn your respect," Marcus admitted. "But I was hoping there might be a better way. Humans prefer solutions that create more allies and fewer enemies. Fighting you might have proven individual courage, but working with you proves something much more important." Vaxthara stepped forward and extended her 4 arms in what Marcus recognized as a Zephyrian gesture of respect between equals. "Your tattoos told stories of warriors who found unexpected solutions to impossible problems. You have demonstrated that this trait extends beyond individual combat to diplomacy itself." Marcus clasped the offered arms in the traditional Zephyrian greeting, noting how the commander's crystalline skin felt warm despite its mineral appearance. "Then we understand each other, Commander. Shall we contact our respective fleets and see if we can turn those pirates into an opportunity for both our species?" As the Zephyrian delegation began activating their communication equipment to coordinate with their patrol fleets, Marcus reflected on how completely the situation had transformed. What had started as a potential diplomatic disaster had become the foundation for exactly the kind of alliance Earth needed. The tattoos that marked his skin had told the story of human adaptability and ingenuity, but more importantly, they had provided the bridge for understanding between 2 very different warrior cultures. The pirates threatening the shipping lanes had no idea they were about to become the unwitting catalyst for an alliance that would reshape the balance of power in this entire sector of the galaxy. And it had all started with a commander who demanded combat, only to discover that the most impressive battles were sometimes won without throwing a single punch. "Of warriors are humans?" Marcus finally finished rebuttoning his shirt and straightened his diplomatic jacket. The transformation back to polite negotiator was remarkable, but now the Zephyrians knew what lay beneath the civilized exterior. "We are the kind of warriors who prefer not to be warriors at all, but who become very good at it when we have no choice. We fight hardest when we're protecting something. We think most clearly when the situation is desperate, and we show the most creativity when conventional solutions won't work." The room remained silent as the full implications of this revelation settled over the Zephyrian delegation. They had come expecting to meet weak diplomats who would crumble at the first sign of aggression. Instead, they had discovered a species of warrior philosophers who had apparently perfected the art of winning impossible battles while maintaining strict moral codes. Commander Vaxthara looked at Marcus with completely new eyes. The challenge she had intended to issue suddenly seemed far more complex than a simple test of physical prowess. How did one fight an opponent who might find 17 different ways to avoid the fight while still achieving victory? Began to understand that they were looking at something extraordinary. These weren't just decorative markings or simple cultural expressions. They were a living historical record, a visual representation of warrior lineage that stretched back through generations of conflict and service. The tension in the room shifted from hostility to something approaching reverence. Commander Vaxthara found herself facing a puzzle that challenged everything she thought she knew about humans. How could a species produce diplomats who were also warriors? How could someone carry such obvious martial heritage while advocating for peaceful solutions? "Your species confuses me, human Marcus," she admitted. "You appear soft and speak of peace, yet you carry the marks of a true warrior. You accept my challenge to combat, yet you seek to avoid it through words. What manner of beings are humans?" Marcus smiled, the first genuine expression he had shown since entering the room. "We are survivors, Commander. We learned to fight because we had to, but we learned to talk because it was better. Every human carries both capabilities within them. The question is not whether we can fight, but whether we choose to."